Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Well, good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio. For the masses. Yeah, man. How you doing? How are you doing? Today's Monday, March 18th, 2019. 77 days into the new year. Just 288 days left. And as always, we are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? Coming off an amazing weekend. More on that in just a bit. But it is Monday, and we are kicking off another amazing week here on Fade to Black. And tonight, we have very special guests with us, Russell Targ and Lance Mungia. And they are going to discuss their new documentary. It is called Eye Spies. It's absolutely amazing. It is available on Amazon right now. And, of course, iTunes, an incredible documentary released by The Orchard. And so there you go. Now, we've got the links up for Eye Spies right there at jimmychurchradio.com. We'll also get it up there in Twitter for you to go and check out after the show tonight. Highly recommend this film. So they will be with us at the bottom of the hour. Tomorrow night, Riz Verk is here. Now, Riz has a new book out, and it is called The Simulation Hypothesis. Are we living in a giant simulation? Is this the Matrix? Riz Verk, one of the brightest MIT educator, one of the best out there, period, when it comes to technology and the internet. And to have this book written by him says everything. And it is a great book, too, as well. It's called The Simulation Hypothesis. That is tomorrow night. Wednesday night, JJ and Desiree Hertog are back. And they also have a new book out. Now, check, this is our week here. Their new book is called Giza's Industrial Complex. That's right. Giza's Industrial Complex, about the pyramid complex creating electricity for all of Egypt and gas, too, as well. It's a great book, and they will be here on Wednesday. So check that out. So tonight, remote viewing, Russell Targ and Lance Mungia with Eye Spies. Tomorrow night, The Simulation Hypothesis, right? Technology. Wednesday night, it's Ancient Egypt with the Hertogs. And then we're going to cap off the week with another Fader night, open lines all night long. So it's going to be an amazing week right here on Fade to Black. And you can follow me right now on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Everything is right there at jimmychurchradio.com. You can follow me on Twitter at jchurchradio and join the conversation in the sandbox, which is hashtag F2B. Yes, we have not one, but two chat rooms that are always open. one over at Spreaker and one at KGRA, The Planet. You can also email throughout the show, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. I got some crazy breaking news today. Crazy. You may not have gotten this, but here you go. MySpace. Okay, you remember MySpace, one of the first online social networks, right? Has apologized to everyone after a server migration of their data caused a loss. A message on his website says any photos, videos, and audio files uploaded more than 3 years ago may be no longer available. That's right. Gone, lost are 50 million tracks by 14 million artists. Unbelievable. And just, look, this is the thing. Okay, the significance and the impact of MySpace, I get that. That was a while ago. But it was still a digital archive of all of that material from those artists who were using that server setup to archive and to back up their material. And now it's gone. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. Don't forget to, speaking of music, the Surfer Music streaming app is available, free for download. All you have to do is go to the banners at jimmychurchradio.com or go to surfr.fm. That's all you got to do. Super easy, super fun. All you have to do is download it and start listening. It's truly that simple. You don't give up any of your private information. You're not going to get an email from Surfer, nothing. All you do is download it and start streaming, and it's all there. Now, okay, really quick, let me bounce off a couple of things because I have a special guest waiting on the line. So just let me say this really quick. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. It's just $2 a month. Click on the podcast banner. You can also become an official Fade or Not over in our membership section of the site. And happy birthday to today, Maroon 5 frontman Adam Levine is 40. Yeah, okay, I had to do it, seriously. But you know what? Adam can sing. Remember Dane Cook, right? That guy that called himself a comedian but was seriously not funny? Well, today he is 47 and the richest not funny comedian in history. OTD, on this day in history, OTD, 1931. The Schick Company markets the first electric razor. And your Fader fact today is there is a 7-year-old boy. His name is Ryan, right? Who started at the age of 3 and 4 reviewing toys on YouTube. Today he is 7. He's been doing it since he was a toddler. Today, Ryan earns $22 million per year, and he is ranked the highest paid YouTuber in 2018. And that is your Fader fact. Tonight, very special guests, Russell Targ and Lance Mungia are here to discuss the new documentary, Third Eye Spies. Tomorrow night, Riz Verk, The Simulation Hypothesis. Wednesday night, JJ and Desiree Hertak. We're going to be talking about Giza, the pyramid, Giza's industrial complex. Of course, Thursday night's another Fader night. Now, on Friday, Hypocrisy kicked off their world tour right here in Los Angeles, California. And Brett Larson and Choir Within flew down from Seattle. And we were guests of the band, and we ended up spending the entire day in downtown Los Angeles with the lead singer, Peter Tägtgren. And I want to thank them for not only being very gracious, but let me just say something. The crew, the band, couldn't be nicer. And to bring us in and just open it up and red carpeted us all day long. And doing that for Brett was just an honor, and it was so cool. So I want to thank the band for that. And I'm going to say this. No ego, man. Everything checked at the door. I couldn't have had more fun all day long. And now joining us right in the middle of their tour, live from Las Vegas, is their singer and their frontman, Peter Tägtgren. Peter, are you wearing your Fade to Black shirt right now?
Oh, yeah. How you doing, Jimmy?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for not only the lunches and the dinner and the hanging and the coffee and the walks and everything that we did all day, but
it was great.
It was an amazing show. It was an amazing show.
Kind of.
It was. And we'll tell a couple of stories here in a second from Friday. But the reality is you guys are out on the road right now on this world tour, and I think you're doing like 28 shows in 30 days. Do I have that right?
I think it's 32. We kind of stretched it.
28
and 30.
That's crazy, but it's rock and roll. It's not the Boy Scouts, right?
No, this is for those who can do more than 4 push-ups.
Right. That's a real tour. So right now you guys have the night off. The one night off that you're going to have in the next 30 days is tonight. You're in Las Vegas. Where are you guys going to be tomorrow night?
Tomorrow we're passing from Mesa and we're going up to Salt Lake City tomorrow. So today it's like a travel day, so we decided to just stop off in between, kind of, and just hanging in Las Vegas again within a week for me, since I went there last week.
To go see Robbie Williams, the big the UFO singer, a lot like yourself, except he's from the UK.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, this is what I find really interesting, though. You haven't toured the States in how many years?
9.5 or something like that.
That's crazy. How have things changed musically for you and the band in the last 9.5 years? And has the United States changed?
I think in the past you always had to tour a lot in America to keep your status or even climbing up, Mm-hmm. If you do it every 9 years, it's like almost starting all over again every time you come back. But so far it's been really good, and people are happy to see us that we're back and everything. So, I mean, it couldn't get better than this,
Now, your audience, hypocrisy, and your interest in UFOs and conspiracies and disclosure. You have a song called Disclosure.
End of Disclosure.
Yeah, End of Disclosure. You guys, your interest in the subject is very obvious. Do you think that trickles down into your audience too? In that, are you exposing them to these big questions, or are they finding you because of their interest in this?
That's a good question. I have no clue. I mean, I listen to so many stuff, and it just goes into my head, and I make my own story of what I hear from all the researchers and everything, and I kind of pan it out to my own story. So I take a little bit from this person and a little bit from that person, and it kind of goes into my head, and I mix it up somehow, and I try to get my story of the things coming out. I mean, in '96, I did a Roswell 47 song. It's probably one of the most famous songs we did. That was already done in '96, and even then, it was the biggest. I think the case of a UFO case at that time, and I think it still is. That's never going to go away, I think.
What really surprised me in that being around you on Friday, and the amount of fans and your friends and your bandmates, and everybody knows where your interest is, right? Everybody knows, you're the UFO guy. And when I'm getting introduced to people by you, and they hear my voice, they immediately turn to me and go, "Oh, you're the radio,
you're the radio guy.
Yeah, you're the UFO guy," and which says to me that you don't hide this. right? There's no intention with you at all. You are fully out, aren't you?
Oh yeah, you heard the new songs. That's going to put me in a lot of trouble, I think.
The
chemical whore.
Right.
Example,
do you want to talk?
Song.
Do you want to talk about the new stuff?
We can talk a little bit about it. Just around the edges. Of it,
okay,
and then,
we'll go around the edges. Okay, Can we a little bit, not fully disclose? Can we talk about the album cover in an outside way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. I'll behave, Peter. You don't have to worry about that. Okay.
You know this stuff.
I do. Okay. So concerning the album cover, which is, and I love the suspense that we're about to build. The album cover is going to freak some people out. It's directly, without pulling any punches, addresses the UFO situation directly, and ET. And advanced technology. So dealing with that and the title of the album, I'll let you say it if you want to. But this is very, very open and honest, and is not playing around about the UFO subject.
No, not at all. I mean, this is the funny part. You remember last time I was on the show? During those days, I was down in Venice, and just kicking it. And I started thinking about the cover, and I had a napkin, so I actually drew the cover and sent it to a record company. I said, I would love to have it something like this. And now, a year and a half later, we got it. We were not in a hurry then. We looked around for some artists and stuff like that, and when it started to happen, I think it really came out the way I wanted it. Like I explained to you, we have some ancient alien feeling to it, try to pull it from, not from today only, or from this century. We try to go back in the past a little bit, like what happened with the Maya people, for example. Someone come in and collect them. Were their job done, for example? Did they, develop us enough to let us be by ourselves and try to figure things out, or? Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, and what I find interesting, Peter, is that although you are very open and the videos are very, very direct, End of Disclosure cannot have a more direct message in it. Yeah. And you also did this with Pain, too, as well, your other band. But this isn't, you guys weren't the first successful rock act to openly talk about UFOs. And if you go back and think about, the band Yes or Styx or, other bands in the past, even the Carpenters wrote a song about ETs, right? Calling all occupants.
David Bowie.
David Bowie that is the most obvious example of this. What is it about musicians and ETs and contact that is like different from everything else? Artists or painters or sculptors or actors. Why is it that musicians are okay with it?
I don't know. For me, it's to find something else than just music 24/7. So it becomes a hobby to do research. You go out on YouTube, look for all kinds of stuff. People talking about a bunch of different stuff, and in the end of the day, you take all these things that all these people have been talking about, what they've been researching, and what could be true or what cannot be true, and you make your own decision what you think it is. And that's how it influences me to write lyrics as well. Like, for example, this song called Chemical Whore on the new album that's going to come out. That's a premiere. Nobody knows what any songs is called, so this is definitely a premiere for that. It's really about the pharmaceutical industry, how they, make you want to have more medication, and how they go in and control you.
I had the privilege to listen to Chemical Whore, and I'm listening to the words, and this is what the lyrics, and I turned to you, and I said, you're going to get in trouble. And the reason why I said that is the words are crystal clear, right? There is no question about what you are saying, what are you suggesting, and what this song is about. Are you prepared for that? To have Big Pharma is the one thing that everybody's scared of, right?
Yeah. They can come to Las Vegas right now. I'm here. Try to find me.
Are you ready, though? Are you ready?
You're never ready for anything, you know. Let's see what happens. I'm curious. Usually when you make a big deal out of it, then they don't want to touch it, you know. Yeah,
that's exactly the point. You know, what happened in your life, Peter, that started this interest in not only ufology but conspiracies and pushing the boundaries? What initially happened?
I mean, from the beginning, when I was a kid, like in the mid-'70s and stuff, when you were 5, 6 years old, it was mainly, aliens and UFOs. That was really a cool thing. I remember with my mom and dad, we never really had any money and stuff, so we took the car and we drove. We had no destination, and we could just drive for an hour or 2 or 3, me and my brother in the back seat eating ice cream, and we're just going nowhere to go. And actually, once we came to a place, they had a museum. This is like in the mid-'70s, or I still remember it. And we walked in, and they had a UFO kind of museum, a very, very small one. And that really triggered me, because then it was like more pictures of things and drawings and stuff that you'd never seen before. And I was like, wow. And that really triggered me as well to keep on going with that. And, of course, movies and stuff like that really started to bubble in your head. And the older I got, the more documentaries you could get. You could order VHS tapes with stuff from like papers in Sweden, like on mail order kind of stuff people were sending. So you were kind of trading, like with the metal music, you were trading tapes in the 70s, 80s, and so on, you know. But here we were doing like documentaries on TVs that you couldn't get in Sweden and stuff like that, and that triggered you even more. So
we were sitting in a coffee shop, you and I, on Friday, and the BA sisters, who are probably listening right now, so a big shout out to them. They come up to say hello, and Melissa goes, "Oh, and I got you a gift." And I was, thinking it's, her new CD or it's this, and she whips out a little alien, I don't even know how to describe it. But
a jelly alien.
Yeah, that lights up when you touch it. Totally cool. I got some pictures of it. I'll post them. But that's an example of everybody knows exactly where you are coming from, don't they?
Oh yeah, definitely. I have a lot of aliens at home that I get from fans. Anything from being 2 inches high to 6 feet high. It's something else. It's really great. I love it.
And I want to say this really quick because I have told a few people about what went down on Friday. But I haven't been to a rock and roll show in a while where I was able to just, go start to finish. But I was able to, because of you, and just the circumstances of the day. It wasn't anything that was planned. But I ended up being a roadie. I was a guitar tech. I was a photographer. I was a videographer. I even did a little security. It was something that for myself and for Brett to be able to get the full experience of what rock and roll is all about was because of you. And just thank you so much. It was totally cool. Now,
it was my pleasure. It was great. There's no rock stars around me, So we just, everybody's trying to be cool and have both feet on the ground always. Otherwise, we have to smack people around. That's our rules.
It was just so much fun, and I want to talk about everybody in your band really quick before we go. I cannot believe, and I'm being serious, we've all done the rock and roll thing, okay? And we always know there's always a bad apple. Your band, everybody in the band, unless I'm completely wrong here, are absolutely grounded and cool. Is that a requirement for hypocrisy? I'm being serious, too. That's a serious question.
I think, the older you get, you choose your surrounding, kind of, So I guess the older you get, you form your life with people you want to be around and work with and so on. When you're younger, you just grab anyone, and then you find out later that they're not so cool.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, you know, the older you get, the more delicate it gets, you know, to have someone that has something inside his head to work with, because you're going to be trapped in a bus for a month, maybe sometimes 2 months.
Right.
And then you really have to, the chemistry has to work, otherwise it's a nightmare.
And how are the audiences different here in the United States from, say, doing some of the giant festivals over in Europe, and where obviously you're from Sweden, so you have your local fan base there too as well. How are the audiences different?
I don't know. I mean, I was looking out because we did some shows in November in Europe, and you look out at them, and then you look at this, and it's pretty close. You know, they're hungry. We haven't been out in Europe for a long time either, so people are really hungry to be a part of it. You know, of course, which is really great. And it helps your confidence when you write music. You know, and if you're on the bottom of your self-confidence, and it's really hard to get up, you know, to be inspired to write music or lyrics and stuff. But if you always get pats on the back and stuff, it really boosts you to start writing more and, you know, get into things and, just plainly getting inspired, you know.
Okay, Peter, here's the question before I let you go. I'm going to ask this.
Yes.
When is the new album coming out? I know it's half done. All the music is done. There's still some things that have to be finished, but you've got a lot of fans out there, man. When can we expect this?
I would say October, November. I would say like one song at least end of September is coming out with a video, like a pre-thing. That I could pretty much promise you. So there will be a song out 1 month before the album comes out, you know. And, they need 4 months. After I'm done with the album, they need 4 months to prepare it, the record company, because they want to do a good job and stuff, so they want to have plenty of times with everything. But now when we were here, we were doing photo shoots, we did video, and so we're a lot in that ahead, because usually after you're done with the album, then you start doing the photos and videos and covers and you name it. But now we're doing it a little bit backwards, which feels good, and it makes you less stressed when you get home, and then you only have to concentrate on lyrics and stuff like that. So let's see what kind of lyrics it's going to be. I'm going to be pushing a lot of fingers in a lot of people's eyes. So I'm going kamikaze on this album. It's
kamikaze. Well, I can assure all the fans out there that I've listened to 3 or 4 tracks. I think 4 tracks from the new record, and it's an evolution. It's not a revolution. It's an evolution of your songwriting, and you have taken it to another level. The vocals have never been better, but the lushness and the completeness of everything is going to blow people's minds. And you've certainly taken your skills to another level, Peter, so congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Now, I know
it's always hard to know. I mean, we have to follow our hearts, but the more we listen to the album now when it's complete, it sounds like a kind of a best of Hypocrisy, but new, if you know what I mean.
Peter, I'm now taking away from your night on the Las Vegas Strip, so go out with the guys, have a great time, tell everybody I said hello. Good luck on the tour. Definitely. And when you get to Salt Lake, don't forget, you got to say, good evening, Salt Lake. You just got to do that, okay?
All right, I will.
All right. Safe travels, Peter.
All right, Fader fans, hope to see some of you out there. You know, we just started, so hopefully we're in town near you.
Thank you so much, Peter. Now go have fun.
Hey, thank you. We'll talk soon.
Thank
you very much.
Peter Tägtgren, Hypocrisy. The world tour is right there. You can go to hypocrisy.com. You can follow Hypocrisy, the band, right there on Twitter. And, of course, Nuclear Blast Records. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black, and I'll be right back with our next guest, Russell Targ. Stay with me.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hey folks, guess what the number one phrase that Life Change Tea receives by email? You ready? We love this tea. We love this tea. Time after time, week after week, we love this tea. Life Change Tea gives you more energy, a beautiful cleansing, and fulfills its slogan perfectly. The tea that makes you go. So if you want to be on your health game, log on to getthetea.com and order Life Change Super Strength Tea. Packages come in a 1-month supply, and when you brew this stuff, wait until you see the results. Aren't we all about the results? And with a lot of people's health struggling, we can use a little bit of help. Doctors will tell you disease starts in the gut. So log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Be our next email saying, I love this tea. I love this tea. Get the tea at getthetea.com. Helping America one tea bag at a time.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find Fast Start Diet on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code TALK to get 10% off your first box. And as a special bonus, Fast Start will include their #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. This is Jimmy Church, and whatever your diet plans are, do what I did. Go to faststartdiet.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, here we go. Welcome back, Fade to Black. Tonight we have Russell Targ with us and Lance Mungia. Tomorrow night, Riz Verk is here, MIT, to talk about his new book, The Simulation Hypothesis. Wednesday night is JJ and Desiree Hertak are going to be here to discuss their new book about Giza and the Giza Plateau. It's called Giza's Industrial Complex. But tonight, it's Russell Targ. Russell is a physicist, author, ESP researcher, and laser pioneer. At the Stanford Research Institute in the 70s and 80s, Targ and his colleagues founded a 23-year, $25 million research program into psychic abilities and their operational use for the U.S. intelligence community, including the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency. These abilities are referred collectively as remote viewing. The new film is called Third Eye Spies, and I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Russell Targ. Russell, good evening, sir. How are you?
Very happy to be with you.
Now, I'm sorry, Russell. I just cut you off at the front of the conversation. I'm sorry about that.
I was going to say, the story we're talking about is the true story of CIA psychic spying, where we trained ordinary people how to get in touch with their psychic ability, and they could look into Russia, look into China, find our hostages, and do all sorts of amazing things for 2 decades.
It's an incredible documentary, and I'm going to get into that in just a bit. I did want to ask you this, because in the film, which since you were on the show with us last time, which was almost 2 years ago at the start of the film, and I've watched clips, but now when I watch, there's one thing that stands out for me, was that in the beginning for you in 71, 72, at the beginning of this, it seemed a bit more innocent for you. You didn't know about the future yet, right? What was about to happen to you guys. Were you looking at it, ESP and some of the new age subjects that were rolling around in the early 70s? Was it more fun and an interest of exploring the unknown?
Well, I had a lifetime of fun and interest exploring the unknown. I built an ESP teaching machine that's still available on the internet. It's called ESP Trainer.
Right.
That's a no-cost device we used in our program. But I had many years before SRI when I was interested in psychic ability. In 1972, I went to the CIA. See, I had done laser work for the CIA in the earlier days. So in 72, I decided that I was going to change my course and move from laser research and set up the ESP lab I had always dreamt of. So I went to the CIA and said, I think that I know how to train your people at the CIA to look into the distance and find out what the Russians are doing, and we can demonstrate that. Would you be interested? And I had an idea that they'd probably be interested.
Oh, you did? Okay. And what I find really amazing, and this is not a joke, is that the world powers now, because the CIA did get involved, and the military-industrial complex, the Defense Intelligence Agency, suddenly everybody is involved. Now we've got, state actors and world players and very serious things going down. Did you get scared? Did you get nervous?
No, I've had a lifetime interest in this. And what makes the film unique is that we have the CIA on camera. We have Kit Green, who's the well-known physician, and Ken Kress, who's a physicist. So we have these 2 senior CIA guys on camera saying, yes, we were polygraphed, we saw what Targ did, and it's really true. We saw this happen. So these 2 gray-beard scientists give us a kind of gravitas that we'd not have if I was just standing up and describe some amazing things that happen in the laboratory. It's amazing that I got the CIA on camera to give me a testimonial that they were there and it happened.
And the very early on, and what I mean by that is, the program kicked off with you and Hal Puthoff in 72. Ingo Swann, you guys are starting to show things in, and amazing yourselves too as well. That was the other thing, where this was getting pretty solid. But then the situation with Pat Price surfaces, and he leaves and joins the CIA, reveals some pretty incredible stuff. And you and I have talked about that before. We don't need to get into that. But he does some pretty serious exposure, and then 4 months later, Pat Price dies. Does that start to show you and everybody else about how serious this situation was getting for you guys?
That definitely got my attention. I got worried at that point. See, I knew about ESP for a lifetime. Pat Price was functioning at a level that I had never imagined. It never occurred to me that a guy could bring his consciousness into the vault of the National Security Agency and read the top secret names of programs. That's beyond what I or anybody else had ever seen. So Price was really in a category by himself, able to read things in a top secret location. And what happened is that after a year, the CIA got worried about Price hanging out with these hippies in California. CIA was worried that I was too much of an enthusiast to be working with the world's greatest psychic. What they felt is that Price could read anything. Price could read the nuclear launch codes in the pocket of the president and start a world war, and here he's hanging out with Targ and Putoff at SRI having too good a time. So Price really scared them because of his omniscience, and they wanted to take him out of California and have him under their control in Virginia, and that's what they did.
Did they okay? Did they put pressure on you guys in that you can now look back with hindsight? Were they putting pressure on you guys that was starting to freak you out a little bit, where they wanted to use this for some pretty crazy reasons?
Oh, I wouldn't say so. They knew we were scientists, first of all. So half of our time we were doing research, and we were actually able to publish in Nature magazine and the Proceedings of the Engineering Society. We couldn't publish the fact that we were spying on the Russians or the Chinese, but we could publish our data about psychic hide and seek in the Bay Area, where somebody would hide and Price had to say where they were. So we could talk about that stuff and publish that, but what they got more and more pressure is that no more publishing of anything. This is an operational program. Don't you get that? And I eventually got it and left because it was our in-house monitor. I asked him, just think of the possibilities. We were seeing a lot of precognition. We were seeing the people could be targeted on what's going to happen in the future, and they could do that just as well as contemporaneous viewing. And as a physicist, that was very exciting to me, because it's absolutely, probably the most important thing I can tell you is for a psychic, it's just as easy to describe what's happening next week as what's happening right now. No harder to look into the future, and that's new physics. That's really quite amazing. And I wanted our contract monitor, I said, well, can't you just think about that? He said, I'm not paid to think. I'm paid to find out what the Defense Intelligence Agency wants and to make sure that you do that. So I decided it's my time to leave. When my manager said I'm not paid to think, I realized then it's time to leave.
That's pretty scary to me right there. Did you guys have the ability to suggest what this research could and could not be used for?
Well, we were never asked to do any nasty things. I know the CIA has done a lot of nasty things. We were not part of MKUltra. When we first joined the CIA, we were introduced to Sid Gottlieb, who was the manager of MKUltra. So we went into his basement library and chatted with him, and he was a very intelligent, amiable guy, even though he was a murderer.
Right.
I suppose Joseph Mengele probably played Mozart in the afternoon, before he killed the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Sid Gottlieb was in charge of a nasty, terrible program, but his only odd suggestion to me was that he thought it would work better if I gave our viewers LSD. And I was, of course, familiar with LSD because it was the 70s, and I was aware that our viewers needed to have their conscious abilities at hand. You can't, you're not just looking at pictures when you're doing remote viewing. You have to be able to separate the noise, the mental chatter, from the psychic signal, and that's a intelligent analytical task. And if you're high on acid, you'll see lots of pictures, but you will not be able or be very interested in separating the signal to the noise. And he understood that. He said, okay, just an idea. I have a lot of experience with LSD. And I said, I know you have, but that's not going to work in this application. That's as close to the dark side as they ever came.
We know, I think today, I think that we understand that remote viewing not only is real, but there are applications to it. And if you are trained correctly, just about anybody could develop the skills to be a remote viewer. But the question on everybody's mind is the CIA still active in this program?
Well, we assume that they're still active. In the film, Kit Green, who's our super contract monitor, on camera says that they're still doing it at a smaller scale. See, he talks about things I didn't know about. I trained 2 CIA operatives who came to visit us, and they were both very skillful, excellent remote viewers. And what Kit explained to us is that after Pat Price left us, he was working at the CIA with the 2 people that I trained. So it was new. So we have all sorts of new things in the film. There's I wanted to make this film, Third Eye Spies, so the material got archived so that it didn't get buried after I died or got, again, classified. It had been top secret, so I was able to get it declassified, and I wanted to get it out so that people would understand that this remote viewing ability is available to ordinary people. You're not all going to be Pat Price or Ingo Swann, but you can find your car keys, you can invest in the stock market, and you can learn more about who you might be, that you have this non-local ability to look into the distance and look into the future. So I was highly motivated to make this film when Lance and I started 5 years ago.
Are you happy with the film?
I'm very happy with the film. Lance is a very gifted filmmaker. I saw his previous film, Six String Samurai, which is a very artistic, impressionistic film, and I just loved it. There's a third party sent me to go look at this film, and I was sold. I just called Lance. I said, I loved your film. You will make the perfect film displaying this all. And he stayed strongly away from the talking heads. This film is a experience. It's like part of the avant-garde, where it kicks you in the gut. It drags you along, so you're really experiencing what these people experience as they look into the future and have psychic experiences. I think Lance did an exceptionally good job.
I agree with you. The film could almost be part of school curriculum. You know, it's laid out that way. It's educational. It's an incredible piece of work. I wanted to ask you about Ingo Swann. And Ingo in the film, I never met Ingo, okay? I've never had that opportunity. But in the film, he's got talent, and he knows this. And he comes off a bit strong. Was that the way that was he that confident in his abilities, the way it's portrayed in the documentary?
He was totally confident of it. Ingo Swann invented remote viewing in the modern era. He taught us how to do remote viewing and what to do. He said, you should not have me be looking at pictures in an envelope. If I want to know what's in the envelope, I can open it. If you don't, I can focus my attention anywhere on the planet. If you don't give me something worth doing, I'm going home. And shortly after that, NASA came along. NASA was supported by ESP teaching machine at SRI. And NASA was in my office once and turned to Ingo and said, we're about to launch the Pioneer spacecraft to Jupiter. Ingo, can you tell us anything we'll find there that's a surprise? Ingo took a big puff on his cigar and said, well, yeah, now that you mention it, I see that there's a big fat ring of ice crystals all the way around Jupiter. And the contract bonder, a very amiable friend of mine, said, Ingo, you're thinking of Saturn, aren't you? Right. Saturn is the one with the rings. And he gave my friend a contemptuous look. He said, listen, I've been looking at the solar system my entire life. I don't confuse Jupiter with Saturn. I'm telling you that you're going to find something that nobody's ever seen before. And 8 months later, after the Pioneer spacecraft circled Jupiter, they sent us pictures very much like what Ingo has. And we show the NASA photographs and Ingo's drawing in the film.
It's an incredible moment in the film. It's and when everybody watches it, and the build up to that, because up to that point, we only had what we had from Jupiter, and one of those things that we didn't have were rings. It's that fundamental.
It shows that Ingo can focus his attention 500 million miles away, and what people don't realize is he did that with no time. So you see, radio waves or light waves take an hour to get to Earth from Earth to Jupiter. When Ingo Swan focuses attention on Jupiter, it's instantaneous. So the Buddhists say there's no separation. And in the model we have for the complex space-time we live in, the reason that remote viewing works so well is that it's independent of distance. No harder to describe Soviet Siberia than it is to look across the street in Palo Alto. Increasing the distance makes absolutely no difference, and that's now been proven in many laboratories. So the reason you can describe Jupiter or Siberia or Japan or China or whatever you want to do is that for consciousness there's no separation. So one of the reasons you'd like to study this and perhaps see the film is that you get in touch with your non-local awareness, your timeless awareness. But the Buddhists say that we all are made basically of timeless awareness rather than meat and potatoes. And if you start learning remote viewing, you get in touch with that part of yourself that is timeless, that can move out into space and time. It's not just for Ingo and Pat Price. It's for anyone who wants to develop the ability.
Once you guys started to figure this out, especially after the Jupiter viewing, did you guys also look off-planet? Did you try to reach out to maybe E.T. or see if there was life on Mars?
People have done that by themselves. I taught 6 Army guys how to do remote viewing because the Army got embarrassed to always have to come to SRI to find a submarine or a kidnapped general or something. They wanted to learn to do it. So I taught 6 Army people how to do remote viewing. One of those was Joe McMonagle, who is still alive and is a world-class remote viewer up there with Pat Price and Ingo Swan. So Joe was a unique, outstanding person. And many of the people at his place at Fort Meade, in addition to tracking Russians, were interested in looking off-planet, looking at the moon, and they were targeted by DIA to look and see what's on the other side of the moon. Are people building stuff there? Are there UFO bases on the planet? And that was not SRI. I'm sort of a unreconstructed physicist. I'm not interested. Well, I'm interested in UFOs, but not on a programmatic level. On a programmatic level, I wanted to do experiments where we would actually get feedback. If we're describing something, if the guy does it right, I want to know that. If he does it wrong, I want to know that also. Telling me about the dark side of the moon is sort of out of scope, and it doesn't have any payoff. If Ingo writes a book and says, I've looked at the other side of the moon, and there's a whole industrial complex there, but you're never going to know about it, that's not rewarding to me.
Would it surprise you if Ingo did come at you with some information like that?
Well, he did. He wrote a book about called Penetrations, where he's in this book, which he claims is a nonfiction account of an experience, where he talks about a CIA coming to him and say, we want you to describe what's on the other side of the moon. And Ingo goes through a remote viewing protocol and has all sorts of hardware on the other side of the moon. and it's a long description in this book, Penetration, which people find very exciting, and I think it's very interesting. I am a lifelong science fiction reader, and I have no way of telling whether what Ingo said is true or not, but we have enough miracles in the program that if we found a kidnapped American general and we were able to pinpoint the name of the person who kidnapped Patricia Hearst, our psychic policeman went to the police station and put his finger on the photograph in a huge mug book and said, that guy Donald DeVries, he's a kidnapper. And Price was able to choose DeVries out of hundreds and hundreds of other people he could have chosen. So I've seen a lot of miracles, but I like the miracles where we get feedback, where it turns out that 2 weeks later we discovered that the kidnapper is Donald DeVries, and we can say, well done, Pat, that's terrific. It's another miracle chalked up, another thing that we can chalk up for human capabilities.
Russell, I want to thank you for taking the time for coming on with us tonight. The film is extraordinary, and I just got to thank you right now, not only for myself personally, but our community and the world for the work that you have done.
Eye Spies, and it's available for all digital channels, digital platforms. You can download it from any place.
Thank you so much, Russell, and enjoy the rest of your evening, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Russell Targ. The film is Third Eye Spies, and when we come back after this break, Lance Mungia is going to be here. He is the director of Third Eye Spies. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What a great night we have tonight for all of you. I'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Introducing the new Surfer Music app. Listen, fade or not, you know I love my music. This is my go-to for all things notes. The Surfer app is a brand new concept in music listening. Surfer is free, providing unlimited access to thousands of live streaming radio stations. Surfer is an exciting, interactive listening experience. Discovery and surprise are built right in. Surfer is your destination to discover and rediscover great live streaming music. It features high-quality audio streams, free access to music from thousands of live streaming radio stations, unlimited listening, unlimited skipping. You get a music visualizer, and you can also select your favorite channels. Get it at the Apple App Store or Google Play. Just search Surfer Music or click on the Surfer banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with, you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell,
You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
Reclaim your active lifestyle with Angioprim. Angioprim is the original liquid oral chelation supplement. Chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in your veins and arteries that can cause blockages. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. Find out more. Go to angioprim.com. Talk to a trained consultant by calling Angioprim toll-free 877-882-7221.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hey, it's Grace. Can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Third Eye Spies is the new documentary. I do want to remind everybody, our conference, Soul Tech, is over the July 4th weekend at the Loveland Ranch in beautiful, at the Sunrise Ranch in beautiful Loveland, Colorado. Tickets and info are over at soultechgathering.com. Everything that you need is right there. You can click on the Soul Tech banners over at jimmychurchradio.com. Third Eye Spies is the new documentary feature film by award-winning director Lance Mungia. It chronicles the lifelong journey of physicist Russell Targ and co-founder of the Stanford Research Institute CIA-supported ESP research program. Targ's quest has been to reveal to the world the reality of ESP and the fact that every intelligence agency of the United States government has used PSI, or what came to be known as remote viewing, operationally for intelligence gathering against Soviets and others. This 23-year-old program has oversight at every high level. The film is Third Eye Spies, thirdeyespies.com. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black our good friend, Lance Mungia. Lance.
Jimmy, man. It's good to be back. Thank you, man.
Man. What a film. Okay. Now, look, Lance, there's no question. You've been on the show before talking about this when things were just starting to come together. It's been a long road. The film is now out and released. I have to ask you directly, as the director, are you happy?
Oh man, I'm very happy. You know, I'm very happy, and I'm very relieved that Third Eye Spies is now able to be seen. You know, we were not taken out by some shady agency in the making. You know, no one's shut it up. It is out in the world, man. It's really out, and that is actually very exciting that I get to share sort of something that I was working on in a lot of isolation for a long time with your listeners and with the world in general. I mean, I think that this film is really going to, change a lot of people's mind about ESP in general, really just sort of upset the apple cart of what we think of when we think of science. And I'm really honored to have been a part of it, actually.
We have two things that are going on here. One with pop culture and the men who stared at goats, right? And you have that take that the public is exposed to. And then you have something like this that comes along, Third Eye Spies, which is a very serious documentary where the public now is forced to step back, and where, goats was something that was almost a comedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was almost maybe.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
right. Mm-hmm. And where they probably didn't take it that serious, or that the government didn't take it that serious, or that it wasn't successful. And then this comes out, and the public now has to take a step back and go, this is a real program with real results, and it was very dangerous, and things were in play. This is not a joke. And that's, you know what I mean? You've got two different things that the public
absolutely.
has to deal with.
Yeah, man. I mean, absolutely. I mean, and that was really the thing that hit me the first time that I sat down with Russell Targ and spread out a bunch of photographs and target drawings of remote viewings on my living room table, and I'm looking at this stuff, and that's exactly the thought that I had in my mind. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. This is real. And when I had that realization, there was such a mix of emotions there, because I thought, my first thought was, okay, am I being tricked? I mean, am I on camera? I mean, what is this is this really real? And then you realize, yeah, it is. And then your next thought is, am I even going to be able to make this film? Is someone going to even allow this film to be made? I mean, we seriously had that conversation the first time we met. It was something that we did not know if the government was still doing this in some dark room, in some classified chamber somewhere that, they may not like us talking about this. And I had no idea the extent of what had been done. And I understood that the only way that this project was going to stick and where it would actually get made and people would see it is if we really took the collective weight of what all these different people had done over a 20-year period, and we compiled that into something with all of the firsthand testimony that we could get, while these people were still alive that participated in the original program. I mean, to me, that was crucial, because you can look at lots of funny drawings on paper, matched to targets and stuff, and say, oh, that's remote viewing, and someone psychically drew this 1,000 miles away from where they were supposed to be looking, and they got it right. But if you don't actually get real, credible people on camera from CIA, from DIA, from the scientific community, places like Cambridge in England, we got a Nobel Prize winner, people from NASA like Edgar Mitchell, we needed all of those people to say, yes, this really did occur, because it was so incredible and so accurate that it really sort of ends the debate about whether or not psychic abilities are real. Yeah, they're real. But are they useful, to U.S. intelligence? The CIA says no. But all of the documentation that I saw and a lot of other people talked about suggests that it was incredibly useful.
That's the thing. This is, not you, Lance. I'm saying in general, the war, the CIA's got this program running right now. If they say no, it means yes.
Whenever you talk to somebody from CIA, especially somebody like a Kit Green, who was the former contract monitor, and he was later the director of life sciences for CIA, and he's still a working medical doctor. It's like talking to an onion. You're peeling away all of these layers, and you're trying to get at what he really means, or what the truth really is about this. And it never ends. You go down the rabbit hole, and there's so many different other roads that you find. And what I really found is that this just connects so many dots among so many different places in covert intelligence, from everything from UFOs to psychic ability and PK and sort of these sort of spy games that governments play on each other. And nobody really knows where this is at, because the way intelligence is purposefully structured is to be highly compartmentalized. So even people like Russell or Hal Puthoff or Joe McMoneagle, who was the Army remote viewer, or other people, I believe them when they say that this isn't still going on. But I also think that they don't really know. And if you talk to Kit Green, and he says it in our film, he says, of course, it's probably still going on, because they'd be dumb not to, because it works.
Yeah, and it's cheap. It's cheap. It's super cheap. Okay. Let me ask you this, and then we're going to get back to the film. And by the way, I'm speaking to the audience here. There are a few key things that I do want to discuss in the film, but I want to encourage everybody to go and watch it. There is so much information there, and the things that I want to discuss tonight about the film that are very interesting are very small pieces of a very extraordinary project. It's very comprehensive. The film is very comprehensive. But I have to ask you about Kit Green. Off subject. Did you ask him about UFOs? Did you ask him about UFOs off camera?
Yes. No, actually, you know what? I didn't purposefully bring up UFOs to him. He wanted to talk about UFOs, but he was not interested. And see, with Kit was a very, very, very intelligent man, and a very obviously, integral person to this whole thing. And he made me do several interviews on background, basically where I wasn't going to include it in the film. It was not to be printed. But in those interviews, he would constantly bring up the idea of UFOs, and he would not bring them up into the idea as if this was some great thing to talk about. He would bring it up as an example of what is not scientific. It's anecdotal evidence. It's that kind of thing. It's a guy sees a glowing squirrel in his yard, and then he has a blackout and claims to have had a UFO encounter. And what the heck does this glowing squirrel or raccoon or something even mean? We don't know. We have no idea. It's really interesting, but it's not scientific. And these were the kinds of debates that we would have off screen over lunch and things like that. Is how scientific is ESP and remote viewing? But again, I found that as just another layer of the onion with this guy, because when I would interview other people and bring up Kit, it became really clear that he has a very keen interest in the UFO subject matter, as does Hal Puthoff.
Right.
And at that time, I didn't know anything about ATIP or the Pentagon Threat Assessment Program. I didn't know any of that stuff. But turns out that Kit was the one that actually introduced Hal to the ATIP, not the ATIP program, but the To the Stars Academy, that Hal was involved in. And everywhere that I would go, people would say, "Oh yeah, they're really, really interested in UFOs. I think they're working on UFO stuff over there." And I would say, well, I don't know, maybe, and maybe. But the bottom line is that every time I would try to get Kit on camera, he'd say, "Oh, I'm much too busy. I can't. I'm going to be with Hal in Austin this weekend, and I can't." I said, "Oh, great. I'll come down to Austin and I'll get both of you guys on camera. That's even better." No. We're too busy. I can't do. Well, what are you working on? Can't talk about it.
Yeah. They're working on their new History Channel TV series. So, exactly. But yeah, Kit's got his fingers in a lot of pies. And he is central to so many different discussions. And over the years, it is amazing to me how often his name comes up on completely what would seem to be unconnected information. And as it turns out, it's all connected. And Kit and Hal have found themselves at the center of a lot of these pretty extraordinary claims.
I'll tell you, one of the projects I might do moving forward involves UFOs, and it also involves remote viewing, because there's a connection there.
Yes, there is.
And I think that the connection is sort of a consciousness connection, because if you can go and look at a Soviet weapons factory in Siberia, or you can go and see the rings of ice rings around Jupiter 6 months before Pioneer gets there and nobody on Earth knows about it, like Ingo Swann did, then that basically suggests that your consciousness can be anywhere, right? And the only limit to that is your imagination. If you don't know something is there, you can't imagine it, and therefore you can't really make contact with it. But if you understand that something really is there, then you can make contact with it using your imagination as sort of a steering wheel for your consciousness, which I think is the most powerful communication tool that we have that we're not using.
What was it like with so many CIA and defense intelligence guys, one after another, where you're interviewing them? What was that like? Did you feel that they were giving you the straight story?
For the most part, yes. For the most part, yes. And what struck me was how incredibly generous, how incredibly open, and how incredibly nice everyone was to us. These
is that a red flag, though? See, that's my point. Right? Is that a red flag in itself?
No, because I think that for the most part, we were interviewing people who were not in the game. Now there are other people that we interviewed that I think might be, but and even a few who said they were, but for the most part. People like Dale Graff, who was the Defense Intelligence Agency head of the remote viewing program under Jack Verona at DIA, or Skip Atwater, who was the head of the Army remote viewing program for a number of years. These guys were career intelligence people, but I do believe that they are retired, and I do believe that they have a very strong interest in getting the story right. Movies like what the movie you mentioned, Men Who Stare at Goats and things like that, are a complete distortion of really anything. I mean, that wasn't even remotely about remote viewing. It was just about other things. And I think that there's been a lot of minimizing and belittling of this kind of subject matter because belittling works. It works in many different topics that sort of the status quo just doesn't want you talking about. You're never afraid of like what CIA is going to do to you. You're afraid of what your mom's going to say, or what your buddies at work are going to say if you start talking about some weird thing like remote viewing or UFOs or whatever. And I think that I spent a long time with Ken Kress, who was the undercover CIA physicist that ran the program at its inception, and Dale Graff as well. We spent some time traveling and filming him for quite a while, and I saw him at conferences and things like that afterwards. And both of those people, I think, were people who started off very skeptically. They were very, very intelligent PhDs, scientists, people who were really people who had a reputation, and what they saw haunted them, and they couldn't get over it, and this was especially obvious for Ken, because Ken, in the however many decades that it's been since, this started, has never come forward. He chose never to say anything about this, and he sort of has this, beautiful place up in Yellowstone, and he's gone fishing. He's retired, and he was out of this even before I think CIA and a lot of the other agencies really understood the true power of all of this, but nevertheless, he was witness to very miraculous things, and what was so fascinating to me, and at some point I'm going to just put up like a big chunk of a dinner that he had with Russell the first night that we got there, and I filmed this thing, and it was so obvious they were playing this chess game, going back and forth, trying to figure out if they should trust each other. Ken was kind of just probing, like, well, what about this thing, and what was your feeling about this other thing? Because even to this day, I think he never fully can wrap his head around what happened, because it was just so miraculous.
Did you reach out to the CIA for comment on this film?
I did not, but Ken would only do the interview if I submitted questions first, and those questions were vetted by CIA, and he was approved to answer them. And there was a whole bunch of stuff that he also sent in that he was not allowed to talk about. But what he did talk about in the film was actually approved by CIA.
Wait a minute. Wait. Stop right there. Mm-hmm. What wasn't he allowed to talk about?
I don't know, because he wasn't allowed to talk about it. He would not.
Oh, you didn't see the list. Oh, okay. I thought you were given a list of things to avoid.
No, what he said was, send me a list of your questions. I will also include a list of the things that I would like to talk about. I will submit that directly to CIA, and then whatever they come back to me with is what I will talk about. And so that's what he did. And I kept asking him, like, well, you got to tell me, like, what else? And he goes, oh, it's I really want to talk about it, but I can't. And, maybe they'll get back to me later, and, I'll be able to talk about it later, but I can't now. And so we left it at that. But I mean.
Well, what does that tell you, Lance? What does that tell you? I mean, there's a whole lot to it. If they didn't care, right?
Yeah.
They would say, whatever, man. It's just a film about remote viewing. We're not even into that. No, if there are issues that can't be crossed, then there's something else going on, isn't there?
Oh, well, I asked Hal Puthoff this question when we were doing the interview, and he said he believed that probably 70% of the work that was done has not been declassified.
Wow.
70.
Now, what about questions that you asked that they didn't answer? Did you have any of that?
Not a lot, because I found that the people that we spoke with wanted to talk about the things, and we had sort of vetted a lot of that ahead of time. But I will say this, that a lot of the sort of people involved were so gun shy, because of over the years of so many sort of skeptical attacks and them sort of being unable to talk about this stuff, that they're almost afraid to admit the enormity of what they had witnessed, in these programs, and not literally scared like someone's going to hurt them, but just to openly talk about this. It took a lot of sort of back and forth and reassuring that this was going to be a serious look at this topic and not just a fluff piece or a propaganda piece or
right.
Something like that.
Well, there was a couple of moments because, Kit and, and Hal and Russell, we know these names, Dean Radin. Dean's been on the show. He's a great guy, but we've all heard from them before. But when you pull in a guy like Dale, right, Dale Graff or Skip Atwater, Charles Tart too as well was extraordinary,
and Stephen Schwartz. As well.
Stephen Schwartz, mind blowing stuff where we haven't heard from them before, and Dale, who ran the program. And to hear what he had to say, it was for me, those were the magical moments here, because these were people that we haven't heard from over and over again, right?
Yeah.
And you were able to capture this.
Well, I something that didn't even make it into the film for the sake of time was how Dale Graff actually was able to how they convinced Dale to even take this to DIA and create a program for the Army. Russell had approached DIA about doing a contract. And the thing is, we always think of government as this monolithic force. We think like you go to the government, you get something stamped, and then now you're doing a classified program. But there's different contracts within government you can get. I can go to DIA and get a contract for remote viewing. I can go to CIA, NSA, the Navy, whoever. And so this is part of what Hal and Russell would do to basically keep food on the table, is they would go to different, departments and different agencies and then, kind of do their dog and pony show. What is remote viewing? And then they would get contracts. And the way they did it with DIA, this is a story I don't think has ever been told anywhere, because I have this footage and I haven't released it. It's eventually going to be up on my YouTube channel. Dale talked about how Russell came to him and said, okay, today we're going to be the target, and there's a remote viewer back in Palo Alto. This was when I think Dale was at Wright-Patterson in Ohio, I think. And he said, we're going to go on a trip. And that remote viewer back in Palo Alto is going to tell us and describe the location. We're going to call her from a payphone at the location. And Dale was very skeptical. He was like, oh, I don't believe in any of this stuff. I don't know. I mean, he just didn't know anything about it. So they went to some local cave, like a cavern with stalactites and stalagmites and stuff. And they walked around for a while. And then, Russell looked at his watch and said, okay, I think that the remote viewer is probably done now. Let's go to the payphone outside and find out if she found out where you were. And Dale, right there on the payphone, talked to Hella Hammett, who was one of their best remote viewers, who started out as the control subject, who didn't have any psychic ability and never done this before, which was something that CIA asked to see. She turned out to be their statistically best psychic ever. But Hella verbatim describes the stalagmites, the stalactites, the darkness, the fact that they were enveloped by the dark, and there was water dripping, and all of these things that suggested a cavern. And then she drew like all these pictures, kind of cave like, and Dale was blown away by that. he couldn't understand it. And so he said, okay, we're gonna keep looking into this and we're gonna move forward with this. And that was the beginning of them working not with CIA, but Defense Intelligence Agency, which is a completely different program. And that grew into the Army program and, Joe McMoneagle and all those guys. And that's why I think that we were able to get away with this documentary, is because I think that we really actually slipped through the cracks, because you talked about like us submitting questions to CIA, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. We submitted it to CIA. I half expected them to shut the whole thing down, but they didn't. And they even approved things for Ken to talk about that he was very surprised about, like the fact that Russell and Hal had trained CIA agents at SRI who then went back to work directly for CIA. And nobody ever knew that. Nobody knows about that. So even within CIA, they had a separate, not a program, but they had remote viewers doing this, that then when Pat Price came in, he worked with them. But I was surprised that would even be released, because if they are doing something, you'd think that that's something you wouldn't want people to know. But I think in reality that this is no longer housed within CIA. The mainstream CIA, those people probably know nothing about this or think about it as an old story out of the history books. And it probably just breezed right through some sort of a process and got back to Ken. I think that this has gone further underground, and probably it's gone back to the way it was used by SRI. Because when you had SRI, they're a contractor. It's sort of like the Blackwaterization of ESP within government.
That's right.
Because now there's lots of SRIs. There's many places that you can go if you're a corporation or a police department or whatever, and use contemporary remote viewers to get stuff done. And so the CIA is no longer trying to prove the ability. They did that decades ago. They understood that it was useful. They had no idea how it works. They didn't care. And yet now they can go and probably feed data to companies that may not even know they're doing classified work. And then they get the feedback back and forth. And I just think it's gone further underground, and there's probably no more congressional oversight and Senate, oversight and that kind of a thing, because all of that came from Russell and Hal, because they already had the contacts high up in government through their laser work. So they went directly to senators and, their House of Representatives and presidential cabinets, and they started this very official top secret program. But like you said, it's cheap. I can, start a book club on Wednesdays, and if I have a really, really talented remote viewer, they can do really well.
That's right. And you don't have to have the infrastructure. You don't have to fly teams overseas.
No.
You don't have none of that stuff comes into play. You don't have the logistical nightmares that it comes with to try and penetrate a Chinese or Soviet installation. It's nearly impossible. And you might be able to get it done. It's going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to take a lot of time. Whereas remote viewing, it's instant, and you do it safely here from the United States. Now, when we come back after the break, Lance, I want to. You can think about this during the break. I want to know your favorite part of the movie, the one thing that you learned, and then we're going to discuss Sugar Grove. That's right. Okay, so
yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I know, right? So let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Lance Mungia. We're discussing his new film that he just released and directed. It is called Third Eye Spies. This is Fade to Black. More with Lance after this break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Teppy. Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Introducing the new Surfer Music app. Listen, Fadernauts, you know I love my music. This is my go-to for all things notes. The Surfer app is a brand new concept in music listening. Surfer is free, providing unlimited access to thousands of live streaming radio stations. Surfer is an exciting, interactive listening experience. Discovery and surprise are built right in. Surfer is your destination to discover and rediscover great live streaming music. It features high-quality audio streams, free access to music from thousands of live streaming radio stations, unlimited listening, unlimited skipping. You get a music visualizer, and you can also select your favorite channels. Get it at the Apple App Store or Google Play. Just search Surfer Music or click on the Surfer banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Go Beckley Teppy.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Are you intrigued by paranormal talk radio? You'll love the new paranormal radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the paranormal radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the paranormal radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Rhys Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Lance Mungia. I want to thank Russell Targ for coming in earlier, and we're discussing their new documentary. It is called Eye Spies. It's available on Amazon and iTunes, and you can just go to thirdeyespies.com, and the links are also over at jimmychurchradio.com. Now, Lance, before the break, I wanted you to think about this. What did you learn? What was the one thing that just blew your mind?
What did I learn? You know, the thing that I it was more like a confirmation of things that I had already sort of inherently knew. And to talk about it, you sort of leave the realm of science and sort of, you know, that kind of reality, and you have to become almost a poet. And that is that, you know, we are really much, much more than sort of just skin and bones and brain and tissue, and that they're really, it changed me as a person, frankly, to, you know, spend so much time working with so many individuals that have devoted their lives to the study of this, and not in some sort of a fringy, esoteric way, but in really devoting their lives to it and putting their PhDs on the line, that kind of a thing. And I walked away from that recognizing more clearly that we are not confined to our own brain, that our consciousness can really, I think, exist outside of our brain. And that means that even when we die, you know, frankly, that our consciousness continues, because energy cannot be destroyed, and energy and in your consciousness can exist outside of space and time. So that means part of it is still there. And I actually think that even helped me deal with the recent death of my father, you know, because he died, you know, last summer. And I think that, you know, it's a little more comforting, you know, to have a more grounded scientific understanding of these sorts of things that allow you to kind of be a little more open to a lot of other things. And part of that, I think, is just the survival of consciousness.
Well, and there must have been a moment when you're looking at all of this evidence, mountains of it, and it's all clearly depicted in the film, where you're looking at all of this, where even you step back and had that holy crap moment. And did you include that holy crap moment in the film?
Yes, I did. There was actually two. And, you know, when I started this, we were talking about history. And I knew that it would be a fascinating documentary for me to make, because no matter what the real story is, no matter what I found at the end of this rabbit hole, it happened. You know, and it was part of history, and no one was telling the story. It had been relegated to sort of just conspiracy or, you know, an interesting myth or whatever, maybe or maybe not. No, there's no maybe or maybe not about it. All of these events that take place in our film actually occurred, and the history of that alone, the history of both the Soviet Union and the United States, taking these subjects seriously enough to devote, you know, a 20, 30-year, you know, span of time to them, was enough to make the film. But it was still historical, and I was very, very hesitant to do this myself. I didn't want to become a subject during the making of the film, because I felt like that would pollute the film. But I wanted to see contemporary remote viewing. I needed to see this with my own eyes, because if it's that easy, if it's as easy as Russell Targ says, then I should be able to capture that on film. And I remember I went to IRVA, you know, the International Remote Viewing Association conference for the first time, and I was going to shoot this audience of probably 200 people, and Russell Targ was going to lead them through a remote viewing, and I had never seen a contemporary remote viewing in person before. And in watching this, and Russell's always saying everybody's psychic, and I had already spoken to several of the people in the audience at that point, and I knew that a lot of them had come here for the first time. They'd never done this before. You know, some of them barely knew what remote viewing was, and Russell got up on stage and he walked them through how to do this. And he basically said, okay, someone is going to go hide somewhere in Vegas. They're wearing a GoPro around their chest, so we're going to be able to film that and bring it back later. But I want you to just basically close your eyes and imagine where this person, it was actually Paul Smith, who's a well-known remote viewer from the Army.
Right.
Where is Paul Smith going to be hiding? And just whatever the most unexpected images are, you write that down, and don't label it, don't name it, just write it down. And Paul left. I went around the room with my camera, and I sort of stood over the shoulders of all of these different people as they were kind of like thinking about it and like writing down little impressions that they would get in their mind's eye on paper. And I started to see patterns. I saw triangles. I saw lots of fish on people's paper. I saw one person doing a coin fountain with water coming down, somebody else doing sort of a staircase with water coming down. And I'm like, wow, all of these people are sort of getting very similar images, like person after person after person. And I thought, gee, I hope this is right, or else I'm going to have to put this in the documentary and it's going to be completely wrong. But that's okay, if that's the way it goes.
Right.
And literally 20, 30 minutes later, Paul comes back. They plug the camera onto the projector, and it was an indoor Bass Pro Shop with all of these fish tanks with triangular windows like skylights above, and a giant indoor waterfall with a coin fountain.
Man.
So I and they counted up the results. Probably 80% of the audience got it right, and that was the blow mind moment for me.
Yeah,
I realized
it's an obvious thing for me to say right now. They could have drawn anything, right? They could have drawn anything.
You're in Vegas. Why aren't they drawing casino
slot machines?
Slot machines.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's incredible, and that is an aha moment, isn't it?
It is, and I actually saw it repeated twice more, actually 3 times, because we went to Dean Radin's lab and we did a really interesting sort of precognitive remote viewing with Gail Hyson, who was one of Dean Radin's subjects at his lab, and that's actually up on my YouTube channel now. You can see that. It's not in the film, but we did that. That was amazing, and in that one we sent out a person with a GoPro around their neck, and every 15 minutes they were supposed to just stop somewhere and hang out for 10 minutes, and then she was supposed to describe where they were. She got some really good hits, and then the best one though, this was much later in the process, was when Lori Williams, Lori Williams, if you hadn't had her on your show, you totally should. She's an amazing remote viewer and an instructor. She has Intuitive Specialists is her company, and she was teaching a group of Russians in the city where I lived at the time, which was Monrovia, California.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know Lori from Adam. I get a phone call from Deborah Katz, who's a friend, and she calls me and says, "Hey, there's going to be a group of Russian remote viewers in Monrovia. You should go film them."
Man, where that's down the street from me, man.
Oh, is it?
Where's the phone call? I'm in Burbank.
Oh, yeah, there we go, man. We're going to have a beer soon.
Oh, Lance, I'm ready to end the interview right now. I mean, how cool was that? So what happened?
Well, so I didn't know Lori. I call her up and I say, look, this is going to sound weird, but I live in Monrovia and I'm doing a documentary on remote viewing. And do you mind if I just film your class? Because I thought I had said again and again, I need something Russian in the film because this is about the Soviet Union and I can't go to Russia and talk to remote viewers there. And they literally came to me, like to within like blocks of where I lived. It was amazing. It was amazing synchronicity. But I went to her class and she was so generous. Her and her husband Jim opened up the doors for us and just let us in and film them. And I saw so many amazing remote viewers, especially, again, people who had not done it before. They had come to Los Angeles to learn from Lori from Russia, and this was kind of like this exchange thing that they had been doing. And one guy, the guy in the film, Sasha, Sasha actually was a pretty experienced remote viewer. He does sports betting in Russia, which is also a thing here in the States as well. And he nailed that target of looking at the target was Apollo 11 and the moon landing. And he did this clay sculpture in 3D, like something out of frickin' Close Encounters of the Third Kind with, Roy Neary, making this thing. You just see him sitting there and he's like playing with this ball of clay and he's making this little tripod-y thing. And I even thought as he was doing it, that looks kind of like the moon. And he had no idea that the target that had been picked was Apollo 11. And he nailed it, and so how do you explain those kinds of things? And Lori actually had a very interesting partial explanation in that she believes that the more something is looked at, the easier it is to see.
Sure.
And so she keeps probably 60 different targets sealed in folders. And then she randomly picks from those targets, but they're all targets that some other student at some other point in time has also viewed. And she believes that that makes it easier to see. And also, even when the same student does the target over a period of days, it's like they're blazing a path to the target psychically. And I found that just fascinating.
Well, Dean Radin, who blows my mind, by the way. I think he's about as extraordinary of an individual as there is. But Dean talks about that in the film. And he, you have the micro and the macro side of this, right? You have the grandiose side of things where things are being discovered and you can name it and open up envelopes. There's all of that. But that's not what is most fascinating here. It's what goes on at the atomic level, where everything is connected, period. And that is what we need to focus on here. And that's exactly what you're talking about. The more that something is talked about, the atoms, the electric universe gets excited, right?
Yeah,
and that's exactly what is going on here. When you have a room full of people, like you're saying, all seeing Bass Pro Shops, well, electronically, everybody there is exciting what is out there, right? Exactly. And they're all starting to zone in on the same thing, and they don't realize why.
Exactly, and it's proven again and again in various ways. Even when it comes to stuff like PK, when it comes to UFO phenomenon, like things like UFO summoning, there's so many different ways that group energy actually has an effect. Even the power of prayer. It's like there's something about when you focus a lot of consciousness on a given topic or thing or place that makes it easier to see. You saw it in 9/11. I had my own precognitive experience of 9/11, and I know, many, many hundreds of thousands of other people claimed that they sort of saw that coming, intuitively. And it's because it was such a big splash in psychic space, it made it very easy to see. I'm going to go even one step further, and I'll really sort of, plug my film for a moment, because I actually hypothesize, and this is just my own theory, that the reason that some of the remote viewings from Russell and SRI were so damn good was because of our film today. Because in psychic space, there is no time. All that matters is that someone somewhere in the history of time and space is looking at it and looking at it with a lot of conscious focus. So if we go make a film right now about stuff that was done 30, 40 years ago, and a whole bunch of people watch that film and go, wow, that scene where Hella Hammett is describing that overpass is so interesting and it's fascinating, then why can't Hella Hammett back in 1974 use all of that consciousness to better describe what she has been asked to describe, which is that overpass?
Well, and going back to Dean Radin, where he talks about the future is just as easy to see with remote viewing as today.
Yeah, or the past.
Or the past. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the kicker, and the reason I kind of came to that conclusion was that Hella, Russell found literally in his closet the original audio tape of Hella Hammett, who again was first the control subject and later one of their best remote viewers, doing her very, very first remote viewing. She'd never done it before. And she described this overpass target that Hal Puthoff had been sent out to go stand on, and nobody knew where he was. And she perfectly described squares within squares within squares, and this long conduit kind of thing, 4 stories up, and all these details. And I sunk up this material for the first time in the edit bay, and I'm playing her audio along with now Russell, in 2015, walking up this overpass. And it sounds as if she's describing a combination of Hal and Russell, because she says stuff like, there's something wrong with Hal. He's going up the overpass, but he's hunched over. It's almost like he's wearing a backpack, and he's having a little trouble getting up the steps. He's having to hold on to the side railing. And as I'm playing that audio, I'm watching Russell do exactly that. And older, Russell is an older man.
Right.
And then she says, and there's like an obstruction in the middle of the conduit, and you got to go around it. And there was an obstruction there. It was a like one of those things that you put in the middle of an overpass so that you can't ride your bike through it, like a bike obstruction.
Right.
And the thing is, I found out that wasn't put in until the 90s.
She
did this in the 70s.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. I'm with you. I believe that what you are saying right now is exactly how it went down, or how the past can be influenced by the future. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
And I want to. I let this show get away from me. I always do that. I want to discuss Sugar Grove, and which is going to take us into the break, and we'll continue talking about Sugar Grove after, which is a very small part of the film, but it's an extraordinary story and a great setup for the rest of the film because of a couple of things. One, it was perceived as a failure. That was the thing. That was the best for me. And then the fact that it was the most extraordinary, successful remote viewing like ever in the history of everything was an accident that came out later, which sounds pretty trippy for me to set up like that. But that's exactly the case with Sugar Grove, isn't it?
It is. Sugar Grove actually was one of the first things that I had read in MindReach, Russell's, book. And this was sort of the thing that caught my attention first as a filmmaker, and especially somebody who has done narrative films in the past and then sort of still thinks about maybe doing some of these stories as a bigger narrative film. It's fascinating. It's almost like the psychic Dirty Dozen, breaking into this impregnable, fortress at NSA and then leaving with secret documents. It really is a
that's exactly
story.
what it was. But that's exactly what it was.
It was. It really was. And this Sugar Grove sent chills down the spine of every intelligence agency of the U.S. government.
That's right. Now, we have three things that come into play. We have what Sugar Grove is, and it's a place. We'll talk about that in a second. A virtual, like you just said, an NSA break-in, which was awesome. And then Operation Pool Cue. And we have map coordinate viewing, which was something that was just started at SRI. And all of these things played out. Now, let's start here. What is Sugar Grove, the place?
Sugar Grove is about a 100-mile radius in Virginia that now has been sort of decommissioned. It's no longer in play. But for many, many years, Sugar Grove was so secretive that within 100 miles of the facility, in every direction, it was a radio-free zone. You could not use walkie-talkies. You could not use, radios. It was before cell phones at the time, but I think even after cell phones came out, you still couldn't use them within this area. And the reason was that it is a radio telescope facility, the most classified NSA facility at that time during the Cold War, designed to pick up transmissions from Russian satellites and probably other things that are still classified that I can't even fathom. And basically, nobody really knew what Sugar Grove was at the time, and that's what it basically was.
So what ends up happening is that map coordinate viewing, which is what it states, you get coordinates and you work off that and what is at that coordinate, and that's what happens here, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, coordinate remote viewing was something that SRI figured out. They figured out that if they just gave a remote viewer latitude and longitude anywhere on the planet, that remote viewer could then zero in on that latitude and longitude and describe exactly what was there. And so when Kit Green heard about this at CIA, he kind of went, "What? You can do what? You can see anywhere on the planet just using coordinates?" And Russell said, yes, that's what we're doing. And we're doing it very successfully. They'd done a lot of early trials with it already. And so at this point, they didn't have full funding from CIA. And Kit said, okay, look, we still think this is a bunch of BS. But if you can prove this, then, we're going to really fund you. So here's some coordinates. And he got these coordinates from a buddy of his. Kit told me that the guy was a satellite analyst, that dealt with maps and, looking at satellite imagery and analyzing what he saw. And he just asked this guy, look, just give me something that really well. I don't even want to know what it is. Just give me something and I'll give it to them and we'll see what they can come up with. And the guy comes back and says, well, they're never going to guess what this is. So Kit passes on the coordinates. And at the time, they had just heard from a remote viewer by the name of Pat Price. Now, Pat Price was a Burbank police commissioner in your hometown.
Yep.
He was known as a man who could find things for the other detectives. He would often use his intuition to help the other detectives on cases, and he'd heard about SRI. I mean, they had at that point published the Nature magazine, thing, and they'd had a little bit of publicity in the public realm. So he had reached out to be a subject, and the very first thing he was tasked with was Sugar Grove. Hal just said, okay, well, we'll see how he does with coordinate remote viewing, and they also gave it to their very known remote viewer and very accurate remote viewer, Ingo Swann, who was the father of remote viewing, really, and basically, both of them came back with very similar descriptions of missile silos, underground, facility,
guard tower.
Guard towers, aluminum doors that roll up. I mean, all of this stuff. It's right in the transcript. And what's really interesting is that the way they both did it, you can actually read the raw transcripts. It's like Google Earth. They like Pat Price describes it as, okay, so I'm starting off at about 5,000 feet. I see forest, I see trees, I see roads. There's a city off to the left. There's like an old Civil War battlefield over here. There's a statue. But I'm going to zoom down now, and then now I'm looking at a facility. Here's this army jeeps and accordion doors. Now I'm zooming down into the underground levels of this facility. Ooh, look, there's a room with file cabinets. I'm going to stick my head in the filing cabinet and see what I see. I see names. Top secret. Hay fork.
Okay, we're gonna come back to that part after the break. We've got to build this up a little bit, Lance, but because it's extraordinary. But the letdown was they came back with, after looking at all of these details and everything. Somebody said, I gave you the coordinates to my log cabin.
That's right. Kit gets all this back in the mail through an open channel, and he gives it to his buddy, and his buddy just says, I don't know, this is a bunch of gibberish. This is that's nothing. I gave you the coordinates to my cabin out in the woods, and so Kit basically thought the whole thing was a bust at that point.
That's right. It was a failed experiment, which I had said earlier, which is the extraordinary part of this entire Sugar Grove case, in that they do all the testing. Kit comes back. If they find out that the coordinates are actually of a log cabin, where Pat and Ingo did this incredible layout, overhead topographical map and layout, where they described all of these buildings and everything else and radar dishes, and it turns out it's supposed to be a log cabin. At that point, was Kit ready to pull up stakes and fold up the camp?
He was, because he figured this was completely unreliable. These guys had been touted as SRI's, best heavy hitters. He thought that they were really kind of onto something. He knew that they had done some really great earlier experiments. This wasn't the first experiment he had taken place with, but the fact that they got it so wrong basically made him say, maybe there's just nothing to this. I don't know. I don't know why it didn't work. But what struck him was that both of them got exactly the wrong information.
They drew the same thing. And we'll take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Lance Mungia. We're talking about his new film. It's a documentary called Third Eye Spies, available on Amazon and iTunes. You can go to thirdeyespies.com. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out. That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-717-WAVE, 888-717-WAVE, or visit dryhealthyhome.com. Dryhealthyhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Lance Mungia. We're talking about his new film. It is called Eye Spies. It is available on Amazon and iTunes. Tomorrow night, Riz Verk is here. We're going to talk about his new book, The Simulation Hypothesis. And Wednesday night, it's JJ and Desiree Hertalk, and we'll be talking about Giza. Now, Lance, continuing the Sugar Grove story. It's the one thing that Kit Green was, I guess the word, surprised, I think is it, where Ingo had, I'm sorry, I'm brain freezing right now.
No, that's okay. I mean,
it was Ingo and Pat Price.
Yes.
Had drawn the same map and had described the same things. What happens next?
Well, first of all, let me just remind everybody listening to this that they weren't together. It's not like they could cheat and look off each other's papers and that kind of a thing. They actually, were done separately. They were interviewed separately for this. And basically, Russell just sort of pointed that out to Kit. He said, it's interesting that both of these guys got the same thing. And Kit said, yeah, that is interesting. And so he decided to sort of take a weekend trip out to his buddy's cabin, and take his family out there. And as he was getting out there to this cabin, he sort of noticed that there's this giant radar dish out in the distance. And, what's that? And so he decides to, drive over there to this sort of facility, and he sees a guard tower. And behind the guard tower, he sees, big aluminum doors, rolled up with Jeeps and stuff like that. And he sees all of this crazy stuff. And then he goes, okay, well, maybe there's something to this. Let me just send all of this information to I'll find out whose facility this is, and then I'll just send him the information. Turns out it was NSA. So he sends that stuff to NSA. Next thing you know, NSA, FBI, his superiors at CIA are in his office in Virginia saying, what the heck are you doing spying on the NSA with psychics in California? And he's like, wait, whoa, we got to talk to them. And so they basically pulled Russell and Hal in, kind of like going into the principal's office. And it's like, you guys have been naughty. What are you doing? And, that was basically the beginning where Russell and Hal basically said, well, we can keep doing this if you want. And
they had to say, look, you guys wanted proof. You give us coordinates. We don't know what the coordinates are. We saw what we saw. We didn't know this is a completely top secret NSA facility that nobody knows about in a location that doesn't even have radio transmissions in it. And we found the location. What more proof do you need?
Well, this is actually everything we've set up to this point is just set up, because all of that wasn't really what got the CIA excited.
No. Okay. It was Operation Pool Cue.
Right. Pat Price claims that he psychically stuck his head inside filing cabinets buried 4 floors down, and some names just popped into his head. And so he wrote them down. Operation, Hay Fork, Pool Q, Rack Up, all of these different pool names. And it turns out that these were all classified special access projects. The names were classified. Nobody was supposed to know that information, and yet Pat Price pulled it out of thin air. And that is the thing that freaked everybody out.
Because now it's not about looking at a house or a building or troops or missiles, but you can actually read what's on a piece of paper.
That's right. And now traditionally, reading is sort of the hardest thing that a remote viewer can do. It's very hard to get analytically logical information, but Pat Price could do that. So he was sort of 1 in a million, or maybe even more than a million. And this just basically stunned the entire intelligence community. And I talked to Ken Kress at length about this, that, he and everybody else at CIA was sort of stunned that anybody could pull up this information, because what it means is there's this massive security hole that nobody is even thinking about.
Nobody's safe.
Right.
Nobody. It's one thing to think about the Russians or the Chinese and how they would freak out about this. But that means even here in the United States, there isn't anything private anymore.
Well, there's already nothing private anymore anyway, just because, if they really wanted to, I'm sure they could be listening to your phone conversations. They could be, doing all kinds of things. But this is an asset that goes much deeper than even that, because you literally have no hiding place from this. And actually, a lot of the work that was done in government much later in the Army, was counterintelligence trying to figure out how you stop something like this.
What does this do to Pat Price? I mean, ultimately, we know that it cost him his life. But at this stage of the game, what did it do to Pat Price, and how were they looking at him?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I think Pat Price, just based upon all of the anecdotal evidence and the interviews from different people that knew him, I think he really did consider himself sort of a patriot. He was a police officer. I mean, police officers generally have a sense of honor and responsibility. And so I think that Pat took what he was doing very seriously. And I think he was, just super thrilled to be sort of all of the sudden the darling of both SRI and CIA. But the problem is, and I got this directly from Ken, that CIA never trusted SRI. CIA doesn't ever really trust anybody, I don't think. And so they were always sort of suspicious that somehow they were still being duped. They didn't know, I mean, could this guy be, have inside information from NSA? And even I actually asked that question, and I actually did some research just to make sure that those projects were special access projects that were contemporary and not old, that somebody could have just pulled out of a hat and given to him as secondhand information. But it was so puzzling to them. And they may have trusted Hal a little more than they trusted Russell, because Russell was at his heart a true scientist in the best sense, in that he really wanted to publish this stuff. And Hal was a real scientist as well. I mean, every bit as much as Russell. But Hal had been involved with intelligence for a long time. He had been in naval intelligence, and so he was more of a career intelligence guy than Russell was. And I think that Ken even said blatantly, he said, we didn't really trust Russell. We didn't know he had all of the clearances. There was no official reason not to trust him. But when you're talking about something so incredible as being able to read documents on a NSA agent's desk or locked away in a filing cabinet, you have to look at every option. And so, on the one hand, they started funding SRI. And on the other hand, CIA started to look at them very suspiciously.
Dean Radin on this show, and also I believe he talks about this a little bit in the documentary, in that he was always fascinated with magic and deception.
That's right.
Right? And so when you get into ESP and parapsychology and PK and certainly remote viewing, that when you're coming at it from the NSA or the CIA or the DIA and them coming back in, they have to be aware of that. There could be some deception here intentionally for a lot of different reasons. One of them could be monetary gain, right? Mm-hmm. And
sure, or planting a Soviet agent within their ranks.
The con, right? The long play. Right? And that's really what ultimately is going on here. And then when you have somebody like Dean Radin, who is a magician and a good one, right? Well, he would know how to. It's not what Dean is about. I'm not suggesting that. But it's exactly what they were suspicious of.
That's right.
Which is being played, and that this was just something elaborate to get one over on the agencies.
Absolutely. And the CIA actually employed magicians. There were undercover
They did
CIA
it all the time.
magicians.
They had to do the exact same thing to the Soviets or to Germany in World War II. It was sleight of hand, and they had to do it all the time.
Yeah, and they and Russell, by the way, was a child magician who did mental magic on the stage, and that led him to realized when he would do mental magic on a stage, sometimes he would guess things that turned out to be scarily accurate. That was his first experience with ESP. And I think that the fact that somebody like Dean or Russell or someone like that obviously is attracted to magic, because magic is about the mysterious and what we don't understand, but it also makes them really good researchers, because it allows them to understand how they can be tricked. And you can do a lot of things. And I know the techniques. I know about cold readings. I know you can sort of throw out some general statements and watch body language. If you're doing remote viewing and somebody across the room is writing something, you could maybe be an expert in handwriting, or how they are able to pen this and then wind up copying what they're writing. So they took all of these things into account. They weren't foolish about the way they were doing any of this stuff. It was a completely legitimate scientific lab. And I think that actually, the experience of magic, another interesting thing about magic is that a lot of times people who are doing real ESP work, it's about belief. And sometimes I think even going back to studying, the shamans and the ancient cultures and stuff, you'd have the mystic who would sort of augment whatever he was trying to do with psychic abilities with practical magic, gunpowder or something going off, because the belief in his audience actually somehow made whatever he was doing more powerful. That's what they believed anyway.
And so did Pat Price. And Pat, with all the success that he had at SRI, he leaves SRI because he gets hired by the CIA, and it's his dream gig. He's a happy guy, right?
Well, yeah, in a sense, because what happened was CIA was very much shaken by what Pat Price had done. And they did a few more things directly with SRI, and then basically internally CIA had a conversation that went something like, we can't trust these guys, we can't monitor them all the way out in California, so basically let's just shut down the contract and let's take their best guy and sequester him. So they basically ended the SRI contract. This was still in the 70s. And then they basically took Pat Price, put him on a farm in Virginia, and monitored him 24/7. And Russell went out there to visit him, and he had guards off in the periphery watching what he was doing. This guy was doing daily work for CIA in Virginia. And I have the newspaper article that announced that he was moving to Virginia to become a coal mine manager at some ranch. He was going to oversee the farm and the coal mines and stuff. It was all a cover, positioned by CIA. And from there, he became a psychic spy for CIA, and that was it.
So what, let's go ahead and disclose it. What was it that that last project that might have gotten him into some trouble?
Well, so basically what happened was Ken Kress had also been sending out CIA agents to SRI under the guise of monitoring and with the real goal of training how to do remote viewing. And those people, there were at least two of them, went back to CIA and had started sort of informally doing remote viewings directly within CIA. And Ken was very surprised to find that they were getting really good results and that they had sort of pinpointed some things that CIA wanted to know. And Pat was given harder and harder tasks within CIA at this point, nothing to do with SRI, as a kind of a demonstration of ability, because they were really trying to figure out if he was for real. And what the final one was, he was asked to look at a Libyan embassy and determine where the code room within the embassy was. And we don't know if he actually read any codes, but he definitely determined where the code room was, and there was an actual real team of CIA agents that had actually had to break into that facility and were intimately familiar with details from it. Pat got all of those details and then outmatched them with the information that he gathered in that facility. And then he comes back with information about what the Libyans are doing in a certain part of their desert with a terrorist training camp and people speaking Chinese and other languages. And CIA knew nothing about this. And then they said, okay, well, point the satellite in the Libyan desert where he says to look. Let's talk to some of the other human agents that we have wandering around. Is there any validity to this? And then all of the information came back, yes. And there really was a terrorist camp exactly where he said. And 4 months later, Pat Price. Actually, I don't even think it was 4 months. I think his entire time there was 4 months. I think it was days later, Pat Price was dead.
And this is what I find really interesting. How did he die?
That is a big subject of debate because he did have a heart condition. He could have just died of a heart attack, and he claimed as, this was happening that he was suffering from food poisoning or some kind of a poisoning. He felt he'd been poisoned. Some people think the Russians killed him. Other people think he died of a heart attack. Some people think the CIA killed him. We don't know.
And this is where it gets really good. What happened to his body?
You paid close attention to the documentary.
Man, this is the most fascinating. And see, this is, Lance, I'm not blowing smoke. The film does not hold back. Okay? You lay it all out there. There's no teaser material here. For somebody that is not only interested in the subject, but that may want to know what really goes on in Washington or the three-letter agencies with real people, that everything is presented here, right? And you do a really good job of that. That being said, what happened to his body, Lance?
Well, first of all, I think that that's still in contention. But according to Kit Green, basically his body was taken to a hospital in Las Vegas and was cremated before they even notified his wife that he had died.
And the question for that would be why. Also, and I want your answer to that. Kit Green says something else. He said, it's natural causes. You don't need anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that Kit admits that would have been highly irregular, but that's also not necessarily what happened, because there's differing stories about how Pat Price died. Russell remembers seeing Pat Price in a coffin, and so it's which story do you believe, and what does it mean that there's an incongruity there? If you ask some of the remote viewers from the Army program, just for fun years later, they actually remote viewed Pat Price in an envelope, just the name, and they came up with a guy working in an underground facility somewhere in Alaska.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. And he had so much talent, and you're right. He considered himself a patriot. And then we have Ingo Swann. And I had asked Russell, I don't know if you heard my conversation with Russell earlier.
No, I missed it, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, I'm going to lay the same thing out here for you. Ingo was very confident in his abilities, and to the point where there was nothing that he couldn't do, and he wanted to make that very clear. Was he really that strong? Was his ego a part of what he was doing?
I think I got a really good idea of Ingo from so many people who knew him. I talked to so many people who really loved this guy and really knew him very well. And his ego, his ambition was just part of who he was. And I think that his confidence is part of what made him such a revolutionary psychic. He was a renowned artist. I mean, he had a painting in the Smithsonian. I mean, this guy was the real deal in many, many ways. But he was very ambitious, and I think that he also was incredibly smart. He was as much of a researcher and a scientist as the scientist. I mean, he wanted to know the validity of this. He wanted to know the reality of it, whether it was for good or for ill, and he sort of structured the entire Army program for the Army. He came in and sort of created all these protocols for these Army remote viewers that sort of became a point of contention between, I think, him and Russell. And it led to sort of a falling out between them, because Russell believed that remote viewing should be very easy for people to do. I think Ingo understood that the Army was very regimented and disciplined, and they needed to have sort of like a system to do remote viewing and a code book to look at and stuff to do. And so he created a very specific formula for doing remote viewing in the Army. But he was just an ambitious guy, and I don't know. I mean, there was a definite sort of rivalry between Ingo and Pat, because I think that Ingo sort of resented that Pat got a lot of attention from the CIA, and it made him work even harder on the Army and other things to sort of solidify his position, I believe.
There's and I want to thank you for this conversation tonight and the movie. But before we run out of time, I wanted to get the thank you in, if we do run out of time, is that nothing is safe anymore. If the Russians are working on this, then they can look at us. Also, remote viewers could spy on other remote viewers, which is a pretty frightening thought. And then Uri Geller comes into the picture, too, as well. And Uri works for the Israelis, right? And, well, I would assume that he does. And
I think
now
he worked both for CIA and the Israelis.
That's right. And now it's like bringing the wolf into the hen's house, right?
Yeah, it depends on your thought on Mossad, I guess. But it's Uri is a very fascinating person, and and very incontroversial. And I think that part of that controversy is what he really likes, because it keeps him in the realm of a magician and not into the realm of sort of a psychic spy. But if you really ask him, or if you read his book, I mean, he'll tell you he's done all sorts of things.
Well, yeah, including the oil industry, and made him very rich.
Yeah, that's what he claims. He claims that he can douse for oil. I mean, I know for a fact that Joe McMoneagle does very well doing, prospecting and that kind of a thing. That's just one of the things that you can do with remote viewing. But I want to be clear: remote viewing is not a catch-all. It's not the perfect solution to the intelligence agencies. It didn't work 100% of the time, and the information often has a lot of noise in it. And in fact, one of the countermeasures that they came up with is that you can corrupt remote viewing data simply by focusing a lot of junk at the same thing that you're trying to hide. Like Skip Atwater told a story about going around and posting up, birthday balloons and Mickey Mouse posters in a missile silo to hide it from Russian remote viewers.
And what would that do? Yeah, exactly. What would that do?
It would create so much noise that the tasker would probably throw all of the data out. Because they would say, oh, well, I'm seeing a birthday party with Mickey Mouse, but I'm also seeing a new class of nuclear missile. And I think that the confusion was designed to sort of screw things up. You can also take a remote viewer's target data. Like if you just have a signifying number, and if you screw with that, then if all of a sudden somebody starts concentrating on a volcano, and the target is supposed to be a bunker, and then all of a sudden the remote viewers, because it's an imaginal skill. It's not something that is concrete, and I think that's why science hasn't been able to really wrap their head around this kind of thing in a mainstream way, because it doesn't work the same way every time. It's not that reliable.
You mentioned really quick, I wanted to get back to this. We have 2 minutes. You mentioned the UFO aspect with remote viewing, and that would be, part 2 to Third Eye Spies. How would you approach that?
Because consciousness is primary, like Max Planck said. It's like if your consciousness goes anywhere, then it's just as easy to see the inner workings of a UFO as it is to see what's happening in your studio right now. And I think that is a fascinating subject. It's probably something that has been useful to intelligence agencies as well. But why not have fun with it and play around with that subject? Because I think that we're really looking in the wrong place when we look at contact or disclosure. We're thinking of it as this faraway thing that other people have to make possible for us. I don't believe that anymore, not after making this film. I believe that radio telescopes are a waste of time. I believe that ET has probably been phoning you constantly, and you're just not picking up the phone because we don't understand how important the missing link is, which is our own consciousness.
All right, stay right there. We're going to do some overtime. I'm not ready to end this, Lance. Okay, that's it. You're stuck. Let's take a
good
right. Let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Lance Mungia. We're talking about his film Third Eye Spies, and if he's going to leave me with that kind of cliffhanger, then that's it. We're going to do some overtime. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. More with Lance after this short break. Stay with us.
Here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter,
but listening to Jimmy Church will.
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Tappy.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and my family is safe because of Numana Emergency Food Storage. Just go to the Numana banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code Jimmy10.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I want to remind everybody to go and sign up and get your tickets for our Soul Tech Conference at Sunrise Ranch in Loveland, Colorado over the July 4th weekend. Go to soultechgathering.com and you can click on the banners over at jimmychurchradio.com right there, Soul Tech. And I'll see everybody there over the July 4th weekend. Our guest tonight is Lance Mungia, talking about his new film he just directed. It's a documentary called Eye Spies. And when we bring in, Lance, the UFO aspect to this, look, we have one thing where we're dealing with tangible stuff here on Earth. Russia, right. China, across the United States, Langley, an overpass in San Francisco. Okay, and we can prove. Yeah, that's all simple. Now, and we're getting people to accept remote viewing. We bring this stuff over into the UFO world. Are we going to scare some people off? I mean, where can we take this?
Well, I don't think you're going to scare people off any more than they've already been scared off when they see a UFO in the sky. I mean, I think that the issue with that is that nobody understands what they're looking at. You cannot scientifically pin down exactly what a UFO is, but you can look at thousands and thousands of testimonials from experiencers who claim to have had some sort of a psychic contact or telepathic interaction or whatever, which would just anecdotally suggest that somehow extraterrestrial cultures are using something like ESP to communicate. And if we're going to, we have to extrapolate out from what we already know.
What do you know? Have you had a UFO experience?
I've had a few, actually. I've gone out on UFO summoning groups for potentially doing some film projects, and I've seen phenomenon. And I had a story. I don't know how much time we have to actually let me tell this story, but I have an amazing story from when I was much younger, which to me suggests a UFO or just a plain old miracle. In that, like, there was a time when I was really in a very bad place in my life. I was just broken up with a girlfriend. I was driving my Camaro, which was very lowered and very tinted, on an icy road in the middle of the night in the fog. And I changed lanes too fast. The car spun at probably, I want to say like 80 miles an hour. And the car, literally, I was pinned to the side of the car. I basically said to myself, "Dear God, get me out of this. I will never do something so stupid again." And the car sort of just slowly stopped spinning and kind of like barely touched the center divider of the freeway and parked itself. And that, to me, alone was a miracle, right? But then something sort of like just an internal voice said to me, "The car is about to fly." And I'm like, "What?" And I blacked out. And that's all I remember. But when I woke up, I'm staring at the headliner of the car. I'm looking at like my bottle of water, which was open, still in the center console. I get out of the car, and I'm probably 200 or so feet up, maybe 1,000 yards away from the freeway on a hill, and I have absolutely no idea how I got there.
Wait a minute. Hold on a minute. Hold on. Okay, let's do a recap here. You spin out your car on ice at 80 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. It ends up in the emergency lane next to the center divider. Right. You black out. You come to, and now your car is on top of a hill.
That's right. In a lowered Camaro with no dirt road, no real visible access as to how I possibly could have gotten up there. But that's where my car is, and I can't explain it. Okay, so how did you get up there? I don't know, but I will tell you this, that years later, I was watching a documentary on UFO testimony, and somebody started talking about dilated time. And they started talking about how, like, when you have a UFO encounter, time just gets really wacky. And that was one of the things that I was experiencing heavily before this happened. It's one of the reasons I actually spun out in the first place, was because I just felt like I had been going so slowly that time was just taking me forever to get down the road. And I found that to be a hallmark of this kind of thing. I've never done a hypnotic regression about it, but it was the most perplexing thing I had ever experienced, because in the process of a tow truck dragging my car down this hill, it ruined the undercarriage. I mean, it was like not an easy thing to get off, and I have no idea how I got there.
One would say that you made up the story because you drove up the hill and got stuck.
Yeah,
right.
You could say that,
right?
But it was a steep hill, and it was the middle of the night, and I blacked out. So I mean, yeah, sure, you could say I made it up, but I don't actually. This is one of the first times I've ever shared this, because it's something that was really miraculous to me, that sort of just puzzled me for years, and I can't figure it out.
Okay, what do you think happened? Are you suggesting? Well, I don't even want to suggest. I don't want to contaminate the story. Well, what is it that you think happened?
Well, I think that a lot of people, have blackouts and then, stop being at one place and be at another. That's the one thing that I actually do know. Yes, I could have blacked out, hit the gas or something, and then wound up on a hill, but I was parked on a clearing with the engine off, and so I don't understand how that happened. And if nothing else, it's a miracle. I mean, I wasn't like a highly spiritual person, but, me being in the center divider of a freeway in the middle of the night, I could have been easily hit. It was foggy, it was on the Grapevine. It was very, very dark. So I don't know how to explain it other than, I don't know. I mean, was there a spiritual force that intervened? Maybe, was it just all in my imagination? I guess it could have been, but I don't think so, because it was just so bizarre. And that entire evening, frankly, was just so bizarre. And it really is something that haunted me for years. I mean, it may be relevant, maybe not, but it definitely opened my mind up a little bit to sort of the impossibility sort of becoming a little more possible.
Well, okay. Now, why not remote view this?
I've actually thought about doing like a hypnotic regression or something like that. And something just kind of told me for a number of years, just don't mess with it. I mean, I've had plenty of other sort of, I meditate and I've had plenty of other sort of psychic encounters and, potential ET encounters just through the dream state and things like that. But that's all just speculative because you don't know if it's real or not. And that's sort of the problem with this entire subject is that, there's always very little real evidence. And it sort of comes down to personal interpretation and personal experience. And that was my personal experience. And I think that it was a pretty amazing thing that I wasn't killed. And it's completely inexplicable, everything else that happened that night.
Well, visions of Giorgio Tsoukalos are popping into my head. I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been. I mean, there's plenty of stories like that. Where but until I know, I'm not 100% sure, but it's certainly matched up with I think a lot of other people's stories, and I've it's sort of something that's just kind of bothered me for years. I don't know. Is
there? You mentioned disclosure before the break. Is there a reason to take the precog side of remote viewing and use that? And look into the future to see what the possibilities are.
Oh, they're doing it all the time. 3 days before General Dozier was kidnapped in the 80s in Verona by a terrorist group. And I just recently found a document from SRI saying that on like December 15th of that year, SRI was tasked just to simply see, is there anything coming up in the next week that we need to be aware of? And they came back and said somebody high-ranking at the Pentagon will be kidnapped on the evening of December 15th. And sure enough, on the evening of December 17th. And sure enough, on the 17th, this guy was kidnapped. So it is definitely possible to use for precognition, but it also is not as reliable, probably because we're looking at different timelines, I think. I mean, I think that, you see it all the time with associative remote viewing where they try to do these gambling experiments, which I did a really cool extra that's on the YouTube channel that you can check out about this. They'll look at two different photographs and say, okay, we're going to try to predict an over-under, sporting bet. Is the total score going to be this or under that? And time and again, they'll get it right. They have a very good hit rate. But every now and then, they'll get a perfect description of the wrong outcome. And keep in mind, the viewers are never shown the wrong outcome. So it's almost as if they're viewing the wrong timeline or something.
What do you mean a perfect description of the wrong outcome? How can you have a...
Okay, so let's say you have a picture of a volcano, and that's going to, just for simplification, that's going to represent the winning side, and a picture of a Buddhist temple, and that's going to represent the losing side. Sometimes you will get a remote viewer that draws a really great picture of a volcano, even though in 30 minutes, the picture that's going to be shown to this group of gamblers that they go down and place their bet is actually the temple. It's the wrong answer. And that's really the kind of MacGuffin when it comes to predicting the future, is that sometimes you're actually looking maybe at the wrong future. Because I think that, again, when consciousness comes into play, we have a say into where the probabilities are going to go, and sometimes even the act of observing can screw that up.
Why? And I know that a lot of remote viewers, or some are very successful with, the stock market and these kinds of things, but the skeptic will always come back with, where's my lottery numbers? Where is the winner of the World Series next year, right before the season starts? Right. Where is that kind of stuff?
Well, James Spottiswoode did a really great experiment trying to predict the lottery numbers with Joe McMoneagle and a bunch of other people. And my understanding was very, very difficult to do the way they did it. And they pretty much did it. And I don't remember the full story, but I know that they didn't completely get all of the numbers right. And I think that it's not that logical of a skill where you can literally, I mean, just name all of the winning lotto numbers, because that requires a very analytical part of your brain. And I don't think that we're dealing with logical, analytical parts of the brain, and that's a much rarer ability. That's why it's so hard for a remote viewer to actually read, and the YPAT Prize was so special at it.
Well, my experience very early on with remote viewing involved me personally, with the Malibu underwater base. And we had published an article that, everybody knows what happened after that. And I, published some very specific images from Google Earth that had jimmychurchradio.com on them. And this remote viewer, you may know him, his last name is Reagan. And I just happened to come across a video of him doing this viewing session and about the Malibu underwater base. And at the time, I was like the second or third or fourth person to have seen this video on YouTube. It was just by chance that I found it. Anyway, so I go through the whole session, and I don't know what's in the envelope, right? And I'm watching him, draw and write and list and go through this at the end of the session, and I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty close here. I didn't know that what was in the envelope was one of my photographs.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so he opens it, and it was obvious to me what was going on. He was pretty shocked, too, as well. I eventually had him on the show to talk about this session. But it was pretty remarkable to see this happen. But where I think it is real is when we're talking about the physical in the now, right? He's got something in the envelope that is a physical thing here. The universe is connected. He connected with what was in that envelope, and that was very obvious. It's another thing when you pull precog in, or when you're looking into the future. And for a skeptic to say, where are the lottery numbers? Where's the World Series? Back to the Future, part 2 situation. And that I don't think is, even though Dean Radin will say the opposite, I don't think that is a real application for remote viewing as opposed to the now and the physical of what is happening around the world.
I'll tell you, when I go to parapsychology conferences, I tend to see a lot of very small effects. People doing very small experiments and getting very small effect sizes. And if you really want to know what the secret of Stanford Research Institute and Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff was, they were really kind of showmen. Same thing with Stephen Schwartz. I mean, Stephen Schwartz is another great example in our film. These people thought big. And unfortunately, the way that it seems that sort of this kind of thing works is the larger the thing you're looking at, the more difficult to see it is. The further away it is, the easier it is. It's much harder to get a really strong effect size when you're actually looking at, say, cards in an envelope.
Right.
And I think it's because your consciousness gets bored with it. It's like, oh, come on. And also because you're there in the room and you're second guessing yourself and this and that. Hella Hamid found the lost temple of Alexandria in Egypt with the Egyptian government and Stephen Schwartz. And she put her and another remote viewer named George, I'm sorry, I don't remember his last name, put a stake down 12 inches from where it had been buried for thousands of years. And how do you can't explain that. And that's a very big, hard thing to do. But yet that statistically, the bigger and the larger the experiment that they would do, the actually better the psychic did on it, rather than doing something that's very sort of easy to do and mundane in a setting. You'll still get a result, but you won't get as good a result, and also you'll see a decline effect where if somebody tries to do it 4 or 5, 10 times, they'll probably get less and less of a good result because your consciousness gets bored with it.
Well, and proving something here on Earth once it happens is easy, like I just spoke about with the Malibu underwater base or Alexandria. The thing is, when we're talking about the interior of a UFO craft, and my position on UFOs, I know that they're real, and I know that they're here, but if you're going to remote view the interior of a mothership, how do you prove the interior of the mothership?
Well, you and I can't, but I'll bet you Hal Puthoff can. And you know why? Because he's a physicist. It's not just proving the interior; it's proving the dynamics of it. It's proving the science of it. If a remote viewer just writes out a bunch of gibberish about a UFO, but in particular, say how a propulsion system works. Okay, well, you and I aren't going to be able to know heads or tails of that. But if you showed it to an experienced physicist and who knew something about the way gravity works and the way other things kind of work that might come into play, maybe to them it might be a missing link in something that they're putting together as a theory. It would probably take a very, very smart person way above my pay grade, to figure out that kind of information. And the other way that you can sort of prove it is that you don't just give it to one person. You on a double blind basis give it to several different people, and then you come back with information. And it is going to be incredibly hard to prove. But if you're, say, an agency of the U.S. government or somebody that has access to a whole bunch of information that we don't know about, maybe it's a little bit easier because it can correlate with other data that you already have.
What about another approach? I don't know if you've considered this, but with some of the things that Bob Lazar has talked about over the years, and Wright Pat and Roswell and alien bodies, what about remote viewing those? The entrance to S4, with Bob Lazar, its location, where it really is, what mountain range. What about those aspects?
Well, first of all, I don't think that remote viewing is completely undefensible. I'm sure that there are countermeasures that you can employ that probably make some things a lot easier to see. You and I could create a whole narrative, and I've actually at least read of accounts like this where, let's say we just decide what S4 is going to be, and you and I come up with all of these elaborate details of what's going to be inside S4, and then we ask somebody to remote view it, and because our consciousness is attached to this imaginary thing that we've created, that actually could shape what the remote viewer sees. And instead of seeing the real thing, they could be seeing what you and I just created in our mind. So it's not a perfect thing when it comes to very unverifiable things. But then again, you can also use remote viewing to say, talk about the motives of something, to figure out details of sort of like what, for instance, a UFO craft is actually doing here. And there's already a whole bunch of information out there, both sort of good and bad, I think. And you have to sort of be able to filter out the noise, and that's very difficult. I'm not saying that it's not an easy task, but I do think that you can come up with some really interesting data. And I'm not trying to be a scientist that is going to publish a paper. I'm basically just sort of interested in a lot of sort of these mysteries, and knowing when you have credible people that are doing credible things in other areas, it would make a lot more sense then that they would also be credible when it comes to something like ETs.
And you mentioned, that like with SETI or radar dishes, it's almost, I forget the words that you use, but
it's primitive.
Yeah, it's primitive. They almost don't matter. With remote viewing, with what we know now about exoplanets and where these fast radio bursts are starting to show up and their locations, why not? Or do you think that there are some agencies now that are remote viewing the possibilities of life on different planets, outside of our solar system?
I saw a video on YouTube once, and I don't know how legitimate it is, but it was only there for a short time, and it was actually taken down. It might still be there somewhere, but it was someone else talking about a different program at SRI, which was specifically about reaching out to extraterrestrial intelligence using remote viewing. And to me, that made a lot of sense because, again, we have to kind of extrapolate out. But let's say that the government is taking remote viewing very seriously.
Right.
They're just not. They're not admitting to it. And let's say also that they're taking the UFO subject very seriously. Okay. So and we know that to be the case. I mean, come on. And so if both things are true, then why not employ one to look at the other? Because you can't understand the other. It's beyond our sort of capabilities technologically. So I think it makes sense that the government might be using remote viewers to sort of look out into space. And, from a more esoteric point of view, I mean, I can go to a channel, or I can go, read all kinds of esoteric texts going back hundreds and thousands of years that talk about connecting to, the spirit world, to other societies and things that don't exist within the realm of reality of the person looking. That's part of this whole sort of world that we're sort of talking about here. But it can't be proven. and it's always existed within the realm of the mystics and sort of the wild-haired, shaman living out in the jungle doing this kind of stuff. But now you do have stuff like my documentary, stuff that sort of talks about how successful the tools of psychic ability have been used for. So then you just have to think about, well, what else can we use this for?
As a director, and we've only got 2 minutes left, Lance. As a director, would you be interested in creating your own targets and documenting the process, hit or miss?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's something that we are working on now is I'm talking to some of the best remote viewers about this kind of stuff, and not just with UFOs, but I think that it's to me, it's just personally interesting.
Right.
I've had enough of my own experience to know that the world is there's a lot of things we don't understand. And if we can use something like remote viewing to better understand our world and maybe why something like the UFO experience might be happening, then I think that that's a great use of this tool.
How is the acceptance and the reviews about Third Eye Spies? How's that been going?
Overall, really good, but you also get people who do not want to look at this information and will just discard it out of hand, whether they watch the film or not. But overall, I think really good. The movie has been in the top 10 on iTunes now for over 3 weeks, and a lot of that time we've been in the top 5. And that doesn't mean that a whole lot of people have seen this yet. I think that I really want more people to see this through your show, through some of the other things we're doing to get the word out, because I do feel like the exposure to this subject actually opens it up, not just in the scientific community, but it actually makes even psychic abilities more apparent and more accessible to everybody. Because again, it's like the more you sort of focus on something, the kind of easier it is for people to not only understand it, but improve their own lives with it. And I think that's a worthy goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's it like to have a company like the Orchard that is big and has the power to distribute a film like this, but to have a genuine interest in this? Does that make it easier for you?
Completely. I have spent so much of my film career, and I've been around actually a long time, and I haven't made a film in a long time. This one took me years,
right.
Being in the film industry is such a crap game, because you're just constantly, having to work to what other people want to see within the film industry. And a lot of times they don't even know what they want to see. And to have a company that I think really believes in our film and believes in me as a filmmaker has been probably the best experience I've ever had, frankly, as a creative artist in my life. Because, for instance, shortly before the film was going to be released, I realized there were a few other things that I hadn't done that needed to be put into the film. And I literally spent like 8 days, day and night, finishing the edit and polishing some things and making some things make more sense. And they didn't even bat an eye. They just said, you know what, we believe you we believe in you as a filmmaker. We believe in your film. You do what you got to do. And we'll put it out. And so that is a very, very cool, refreshing, relationship that I have. And I'm really grateful for that, because I think it's going to allow me to make more films and continue to talk about stuff that I want to talk about and not worry so much about what other people want.
Thank you so much, Lance. Great conversation, and thank you for the overtime. The film is Third Eye Spies, thirdeyespies.com. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. You can just click, but it is available for streaming right now on Amazon and, of course, iTunes. Lance, thank you so much, my friend. Great conversation tonight.
Jimmy, always amazing talking to you, dude. Seriously, I really appreciate you helping us get the word out about this. I appreciate your audience for listening and for hopefully checking out our film. And let's do it again soon. Thank you.
And the next remote session in Monrovia, dude.
Yes.
I'll talk to you, Lance. Have a great night.
You too, man.
Lance Mungia, again, thirdeyespies.com, thirdeyespies.com. It is an extraordinary documentary, and it's so highly recommended. Tomorrow night, right here, Riz Verk and Riz's new book, my favorite subject, The Simulation Hypothesis. Are we living in the Matrix? That's tomorrow night with Riz Verk, and don't forget, Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2019 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night with Riz Vert right here. I want everybody to be safe. Go Beckley Tepe.